And next up, we have a topic on let's talk about the unspoken, loneliness and belonging at work. I'd like to welcome Christine Yeung, award-winning psychologist and founder and CEO of Beyond Story. Good afternoon, Christine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tanya? You are amazing.
I'm very well. Oh,
That's
thank you.
good.
And I'd just like to let you know there's no sign of any background noise, so you're
That's
clear.
perfect. The construction is in the back of my head is like, so I hope this earphone actually kill it off for everyone.
Oh, working perfectly, so I'll leave you to it.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you so much for the introduction and welcome all of you to tune into this session. Now, today, I really want to talk to you about the next public health epidemic. It is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It brings heart disease and significant mental health issues. It dramatically impacts your productivity at work and the quality of your life at home. It is so important that the UK has appointed a minister to look after it. Now, it is not food, nor a virus, nor a drug, and you may not even know you have it. So what is it? Now, the topic of this talk, of course, give it away, and this is why you are here. Loneliness is what I'm talking about. Loneliness, it is complicated in the sense that we actually do not have the exact definition to describe the full extent of that experience. Now, the Italians, not sure how many Italians in the audience, but Italians have 14 ways to say love. You love waffles, you love your kids, you love your pet, right? It is the same with loneliness. There are many aspects to it. Loneliness is not just about being physically or socially isolated. It could be also about feeling disconnection within yourself or lacking meaning in your life or connected with your environment. The one word does not really capture all the nuances. So where should we begin to even reflect on the experience of loneliness or talk about the unspoken? Let us start with, of course, workplace. To make it very simple, I would love you to think about these three questions. Do you feel you would be able to share your authentic self to your team? Do you feel your working relationships are not superficial but deeply meaningful? Do you feel that you are an integral part of your organization, that you belong to something bigger than yourself? If yes, congratulations, this is what belonging feels like. If not, I would argue that at some point, you are at risk of feeling lonely at times. Now, and by the way, which is a very normal experience, it's a human experience that you feel lonely. We could feel lonely at times, at certain life stage, and it is a transient feeling, while some people are trapped into a chronic cycle, and that's the public health issues. Loneliness, that seriously, we cannot be fully defined by a single word. Today, I really want to challenge you in this short presentation to really think about what loneliness really means to you, how you related to it, and how it impacts to your day-to-day working and personal lives. And if you are a decision makers, managers, or leader of your organization, think about how loneliness manifests in your workplace and how that impacts on your people. And what can you do about it? Or have you been doing anything about it? I will, of course, share some strategies for you and your organization too. Now, many have asked me, so what does loneliness look like? What does that look like? I'll share a real story to start with. It is an average morning. Paul is up at 6:30 a.m. He's supposed to get dressed for work, but that is not what he did. He get back into bed and lay there for another hour staring at the ceiling. Let me tell you a little bit more about Paul. He is a senior partner who works in a large consulting organization surrounded by clever, funny, like-minded people. And he has the privilege working in an area that he's absolutely passionate in. If you asked Paul 25 years ago, this would be his dream job. And to be honest, if you ask him now, he would still say, this is my dream job. So why did he go back to bed that morning? Not because he had a late night. I coached Paul, I think now 3 years ago. And let me tell you why. He did it because he felt lonely. And staring at the ceiling for an hour was as much as he could do to face his own loneliness in that morning. He is from a different generation to people he managed. And in Paul's head, he has this narrative about they don't want to hear about my challenges. They don't want me to show that I'm not resilient and being an embarrassing old person to invite them to connect for drinks after 6 p.m. This is his narrative. And he also does not identify himself as an extrovert or loud or instantly connect with people either. So the result of this is that he feels almost entirely alone at work, not only socially isolated. In fact, this is before COVID. He is not socially isolated whatsoever, but he is psychologically lonely. Now, there is no one, according to Paul, that he can turn to confide his deepest worries, fears, and mourn about the upper echelon. This is more than lacking of a good friend or being disengaged at work. He lacks a sense of belonging at work. Now, a research led by Dr. Michelle Lim, she also spoken at this conference, I think yesterday, and her national network, Ending Loneliness Together, they did a survey back in 2019, found that 37% of Australian employees share similar feelings as Paul, and that they feel lonely. 37%. Now, and let me ask you these questions. How many of you can identify a colleague that they're physically present but absent in spirit? They aren't focused. They are unproductive. They are passive-aggressive. They are reactive, lack of appropriate social skills, socially withdrawn, tired most of the time. They are restless and anxious. They are on their phones scrolling through their social media whenever they can at all time. Now, by speaking about that list, I feel really drained. Not sure about you, but I can certainly identify a few people that I coached and I work with who exhibit those behavior. I'm not talking about one-off behaviors, but are patterns of multiple behaviors that I show you. So these patterns of behaviors can be caused by different aspects of loneliness. You can say, Christine, that can cause by many other things, right? But based on my 15 years of experience as an organizational psychologist, I have been working with professionals, leaders, and organizations to build their psychological fitness. I have observed that in most cases, if we drill down deep enough, the root cause of team conflict, toxic culture, disengagement, or lack of productivity came from a form of disconnection. The number one form, disconnection within, when the work doesn't seem to make any sense. Or second, disconnection from people around, hence trust issues, passive aggressiveness, socially withdrawn, or socially too active. The pandemic has really highlighted the importance and urgency to address the issues of loneliness. But loneliness exists way before the pandemic. In the age of COVID, hybrid workplace, gig economy could lead employees feel even more lonely. The comes and goes culture, you're probably familiar with it. Working from home and get back to work, 75% today, Victorian can go back to workplace now. So this comes and goes culture becomes one of the leading risk factors of loneliness at workplace. And so what can we do about it? Now, it's not about making sure loneliness never happens. Again, it is a normal human experience. But making sure when we do experience loneliness and disconnection at work, we are able to find our way back to belonging. And the capacity to do so is through training ourselves to be psychologically fit. So what is psychological fitness? It is the capacity to master unhelpful thinking, uncomfortable bodily sensations and feelings, so that even when you are experiencing those moments, you are able to function effectively and still feel fulfilling. Now, it sounds complicated, but let me tell you, psychological fitness, just like physical fitness, that can be trained. So there is no excuses that we can't be fit in those areas. I have developed programs to build it as a way to boost meaningful connection within someone and also amongst team members. Now, we work at 3 levels. So the first level is a personal level, sitting right at the foundation. And the second level is relational psychological fitness. And the third level is organizational psychological fitness. So we help our clients to build all 3 levels of fitness. So for today's purpose, I'll just share 2. One is related to 2 strategy that is related to relational, and the other one related to organizational fitness, and which means the system level. Now, the first strategy I want to share with you is building is in the middle layer, nurturing working environment. So what we do, we focus on working with and enabling teams to be fit in interacting with each other with quality, even when they are under pressure. The key is under pressure. So what I've seen based on my experience is that we actually don't hear each other clearly. Team members actually don't hear each other clearly. And how many of you can think about times that either you interrupt someone in a meeting or you are being interrupted? We don't think well together, particularly when multiple perspectives come into the room. How do we navigate through that and still make a decision? And we don't help each other effectively. And lastly, we don't embrace the uniqueness and the diversity in a team fully. And then you wonder why people feel lonely at work. Because they are not accepted for the diversity of the work style. I'm not only talking about diversity of thinking, which is critical too, but I'm talking about a way of being, a way of acting, which truly represent who we really are. And there were 3 simple skills. I said simple, but not easy, that can help to build a nurturing, psychologically safe, and inclusive work environment. Some people call them soft skills. They are hardly soft. They are super powerful. When you apply these 3 skills, you can see impact instantly from the other individual. So what are these 3 skills? They are empathy, compassion, and deep listening. Now, they are not new. You have heard of them being in workplace before, and yet how many of you can confidently say your workplace has mastered these 3 skills: empathy, compassion, and deep listening? Now, if you do, please contact me because I want to share your success story. When you are able to master these 3 skills, what do these 3 skills do to your people? They bring together not only your people, but your strategies, practices, and culture in such a way that fuse people connection. You give power to people rather than mechanically applied to people. And you can measure these abstract skills using AI and analytics, looking at their return on investment. And this is something I really love talking about. So talk to me, email me afterwards if you want to chat more. Now, the second strategy I want to share is at the organizational level, which is navigating conflict wisely. Now, and this is a quote that is one of my favorite quotes. This is the intelligence that we need to build understanding and connection in this 21st century. We have never been living in such a polarized and divided world before to this extreme. We need to get fitter and wiser at handling this conversation and conflict which come from diverse beliefs and values. Otherwise, loneliness stays and no place for belonging. We need to have policies, strategies, and practices that are set to mitigate and equalize those power differences. And we have developed an auditing tool to help organizations to identify where those power imbalance lies in work processes and practices. If systems are balanced, it will allow individuals to truly express themselves. And original ideas, exciting innovation, and defense and competitive advantage come from there. So this is the last point I want to make. Loneliness is very tricky. Even someone is highly functional, just like Paul. Paul loved his job, he's highly capable, and yet he didn't feel belong, and it impacted on his mental health. That's a silent killer I'm inviting you to pay attention to. And we are trying to solve this together. So thank you very much for joining me today. This is who we are. Connect with me if you want to chat more. Tania, I'm back to you.
Thank you, Christine. It flew by, but thank